One day, in 2019, a Florida man walked into the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office with a videotape confession and proceeded to narrate a disturbing story that would rival a crime noir film. He had a recording of a lady acquaintance confessing to murdering her father in 2015 with the help of her sister. The man admitted that he had previous intimate relationships with both ladies. The day before this meeting with detectives, one sister had called him and asked him to come over to her house for a serious discussion. She was cryptic, telling her on and off again lover that she needed to talk about a past trauma. She did, and he could not have anticipated those soggy sobs would reveal a gruesome twosome. At her house, the sinister sister began to relate a disturbing experience from her past involving her dad. His initial assumption was that the two women had been abused by their late father. But what she said next would be even more disturbing than that. It quickly became evident that she was confessing to a murder, and he knew he needed to record the conversation. She was none the wiser when her friend, under the guise of checking his texts, started the video recording app on his iPhone. You've never heard anything like this account of one shocking confession. And this is absolutely criminal. In this surreptitiously obtained recording, 64-year-old Linda Roberts couched her terms carefully, framing what she and her sister did as euthanasia. It was, she claimed, something hospice care nurses did all the time. They don't. Linda said that her father had a large mass in his lung. He didn't. And that with his failing health, dementia, and previous bout of lung cancer, this meant he would die in a matter of a few weeks or months. He wouldn't, at least not without a little help. But her initial story started to unravel as she was asked pertinent questions about the man's life. It would turn out that the sisters were annoyed with Daddy Dearest because he would not sell his home and move to an assisted living facility. It was all part of their plan to put Pops out to pasture and enjoy whatever life they had left.
I can't believe that you murdered.
Not me. Me and my sister.
I can't believe that
Don't put it just on me. We made the decision together as a pack.
She's a dumbass. You're the ringleader. You know that. The first person to think, let's just euthanize him, was you. You know that. And she agreed.
No, it really wasn't.
And she agreed.
No, that's not true.
Oh, you both said it at the same time? You went
Actually,
1, 2,
did.
3, let's euthanize.
We both decided at the same time because actually, you don't know my sister. My sister has a temper 10 times worse than I do.
The gentleman of a Floridian persuasion we mentioned at the top of the show was Anthony Marsh. After summarizing the recording for detectives, he gave them a copy on a thumb drive. In the 35-minute confession, Linda admitted to drugging her father's evening mixer with 6 to 8 sedative pills. And when that didn't produce desired results, she and her sweet sister tried to polish him off with a pillow. The retiree wasn't as frail as they had expected, however, and he fought them in the end, only to succumb after Mary Beth pinched his nose and Linda stuffed a rag in his throat. Linda stated that they called paramedics after pretending to discover their dad unresponsive on the couch the next morning. Linda even put on an act of valiantly administering CPR so that paramedics would have to pull her away from the body when they arrived, similar to what Sarah Boone did for her boyfriend. Performing CPR was more performance than CPR. Her father had been dead for hours. In the end, Anthony Tomaselli's death was ruled as natural, and the sisters had him cremated. Even though they collected inheritances, Linda was empathetic that this was not about money. She was adamant that her father had been dying already, and she was explicit about her sister's participation, adding that Mary Beth had been mad at their father at that time. And they might have gotten away with it too, if it weren't for loose-lipped Linda's wine-fueled revelation. Anthony went to the cops with what he had, but it wouldn't be admissible in court, so he would go back, but this time he would be wired for sound by the sheriff's department. This time, he didn't need to pretend to play with his phone. Not that a ruse was necessary with Miss Roberts. Anthony hadn't been subtle when he recorded her the first time. He even admitted to the detectives that if someone had talked to him the way he did with Linda, he would have suspected a wire. The time had come. A forensic files fan, Anthony had to be thrilled to be in the middle of a real investigation.
Going in.
Going in, the detective for a day said to nobody in particular, fully aware his wire was picking up everything he said. Even more importantly, everything Linda said.
Cold out.
Anthony was savage with his jokes as Linda lamented the fate of her condo if she passed away before her ex-husband.
I got my thing done for the attorney, and what I basically put down was that the condo's mine in any instance that happens.
That you what?
In any instance that could happen, the condo is mine.
Really?
Like if he dies.
Wait, if Ted dies, then the condo is yours?
Yeah.
What do they call that, right of survivorship?
Yeah.
But wait, does he have to agree to that?
Well, he's already agreed to it. Okay, if he dies before me, the condo's mine. If I die before him...
Which is not likely.
Well, I don't know. He's pretty healthy.
Well,
but my
I think you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. No, that's not funny. That is not funny.
Well, I'm trying not to make light of it, but...
That's not funny. I don't do that.
I'm just saying this. If he ends up getting his nose pinched and a rag shoved down his...
Anthony, that is mean.
Well, then I know what happened.
We found out that Anthony just lost his mom, and that he has lost sleep over what Linda has confessed to him. Linda scoffed at his feelings. What about her feelings?
Sorry, I was making a joke about that, but I'm trying to make light of it because it's been weighing on my mind. I can't stop thinking about it. It was hard to sleep last night. Because my mom died, on June 8th. I kept thinking about it. You saying you had nightmares that your dad was at the foot of the bed? That's scary.
But it wasn't a nightmare. It was he was talking to me and telling me it's okay.
It's okay that you ended his life early? He doesn't care?
I don't know what he was meaning by it. He just was telling me it's okay and you're okay.
Just leave it be. I'm trying to talk to you about my feelings.
Your feelings?
Yeah.
My feelings? How do you think they feel?
Well, how do you feel?
Well, I feel that, I told you this, I feel like I did what any nurse would do in a hospital in the instance where somebody was that ill.
It may interest and horrify you to know that Linda worked in the medical field for over 30 years. Linda not only doubled down on her claim that hospice staff euthanize patients all the time, but she also stated that she had administered lethal doses of morphine to patients on doctor's orders. She even accused the nurse caring for her father's life partner, Shirley, of the same thing. She claimed the caregiver hastened Shirley's death just weeks before her mister's murder. Linda said the nurse had given her that look before asking everyone to go home for the night. She wasn't checking her vitals. She was warming up the Kevorkian machine, and Shirley was dead by 2 a.m. the next morning. Linda just knows it was the euthanasia.
Wait, hold on, wait. You're saying you did what you think any nurse would do in a hospital?
Yeah, because that's the standing order. when hospice takes over, they can legally kill a person.
I don't think so.
Yes, I know so. I've been in this 30 years. I've seen it. I've done it. I know what
You've done
place.
it. Who did
Yes,
you...
you give a dose that is beyond the dose that they just had. I feel I did it because my father was suffering so bad, mentally and physically. He was in pain. He couldn't breathe.
But yet he wanted a drink of vodka.
Well, he had it every night before he went to bed. He had probably this much.
Linda revealed that her father refused to go to the furnished apartment at the care facility. She had been rationalizing his mercy killing by describing him as being in pain and barely able to help himself. She also talked about the possibility of him wandering out of the house and getting hit by a car. Why not spend his last few weeks or months in a beautiful apartment where he would have everything a sick elderly man needs? Well, he didn't want to.
I'm just trying to ask you, how can you justify when someone takes their last breath? You told me that your father might live 2 to 6 more months. Isn't that valuable time?
In horrible pain and what they were going to have to put him through, and he was mentally completely out of it and angry out of it.
So you girls were scared that he was angry. It was going to get worse.
Linda changed the story about the halcyon-laced vodka and cola that the sisters gave to their father. Now it was 10 to 15 pills in the mixture. But since bumbling Mary Beth made too big a drink, Tomaselli only consumed about 6 to 8 pills worth of the sedative before passing out a half hour later. Linda had planned to have him die in his sleep after the 15 pills were in his system.
I know medically what the dosage is, and I know what it's going to do to him. It's going to kill him.
Did you think 7 halcyon would kill him?
No.
Then why'd you give him 7 halcyon?
I said, that's probably only what he got because she made the drink so big.
Oh, she made the drink too big and he probably only got the dose of 6 or 7.
Right. So, but it did knock him out. Within 30 minutes, he dropped his...
How many halcyon did you want him to have?
Well, he needed probably at least 15. That is how it was originally to be. He was just going to go to sleep. Peacefully done. But she makes the damn drink this big and hands it to me. And at that point, he's grabbing it and drinking it. He took about 6 gulps of it. He says, I'm going to lay on the couch. He says, Linda, I want you to sit here in the rocking chair, and I want Mary to sit there. And I want you to stay until I fall asleep.
Heartbreakingly, Linda described him dropping his prayer cards as he nodded off. Linda saved those prayer cards, by the way, and his wallet. They watched Tomaselli for hours before realizing that they needed to take a more direct approach to the matter.
Well, he sat first because he does his prayers at night.
He did his prayer cards? I don't even know what that is, just cards with little just blurbs of prayers on them?
I have them all.
You have them? Jeez, what else did you save? Did you save the rag that you put in his mouth?
No, I saved this wallet. It had $150 in it.
You threw it away, so it's gone. You could have had at least something that touched your father's mouth before he died.
I had my lips that touched his mouth.
As you tried to administer fake CPR that you knew wouldn't work.
I kissed him before.
You kissed him before you...
I kissed him goodnight when he was on the couch.
Before you gave him the halcyon?
Yes.
Mary Beth was neither surprised nor confused as to why she was in an interrogation room. 4 years after her father's death, the detective began by reading her rights. The detective went through the "you're not a bad person" spiel, telling Mary Beth that she seems like an honest person and assuring her that everybody makes mistakes. This is known as the read technique, which is commonly used by law enforcement to elicit confessions. There are lots of great YouTube channels where qualified experts explain the nuances of the technique, and we will link to some of them in the description. As for Absolutely Criminal, if you're enjoying the show, Please support us by giving this video a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and ring the notification bell so you never miss a gem like Sarah Boone, Amy Day, or Chandler Halderson. Now for more delusional people, back to our show. They finally got to the point at about 8 minutes into the interview. Mary Beth revealed that the family has a long history of dementia and that her own forgetfulness has prompted her to speak with her doctors recently about memory issues. She claimed that her dad's mind was going downhill fast just after Shirley's demise. Shirley's niece had been caring for Mr. Tomaselli for a while, but after Shirley passed away, family had to come up with a new arrangement. At some point previously, they had taken Dad to the assisted living facility where they wanted to move him, and he wasn't having it. He had become angry while discussing it, going as far as stomping his feet while telling them he would not cooperate. Mary Beth described him as uncontrollable.
We went ahead and we took him to the assisted living and showed it to him. He was not happy. He balked at it. We knew he didn't want to go there,
Right.
obviously, which I'm sure because he was used to his home. But we can't change, couldn't have changed our lives.
Right.
But his dementia and his temperament had changed, and I can see him when we were trying to explain to him that this is the way it's going to be, Dad. You're going to have about 3 weeks, and we'll put the house up for sale, and or you can rent it out. But you're going to have to be in an assisted living. You have your own apartment, and it wasn't even into the dementia area. It was just the regular part. But we knew
you have staff where they could check on them and what have you. Were you able to do it?
Come in, but
Mary Beth described the terrible night almost exactly as Linda admitted to Anthony. The sisters were in the guest room bed discussing options. She also implied that Linda had brought up the idea of ending his suffering.
when we came home, it was premeditated.
Okay.
And so I am the one that put
The sleeping pills.
sleeping pills in his drink.
Let me ask you this. Your daughter,
My sister I didn't realize it. My dad had 2 bedrooms,
okay.
and my daughter, my oldest daughter, was in the other bedroom. But my sister had given her a sleeping pill, so she was asleep. She thought it was going to be a small glass, a drink,
So
but
you-
I made him his regular one.
Regular one.
It affected him, but it didn't pass away. She said, let's put a pillow over Dad's face. That wasn't working because he was very strong and he was pushing it off. And so she said, okay, the next thing we'll have to do is we have to get a washcloth and put it in his mouth, and Will's going to have to hold his nose, and
Hold his
we
arms.
had to finish what we had started.
It turns out that according to Mary Beth, the sisters had a sacred pact to take their dark deed to their graves. But along came Hurricane Anthony, and the sisters were trapped in their own vortex of duplicity, destroying everything in their path.
Now, let me ask this. Who else have you told about this or talked about it? I know who was there, but since this point...
The only person is this monster of a man that I met this.
Do you mean he's a big person, or what do you mean
No,
he's a
I'm
monster?
saying he is a very bad
He's a bad person, is what you're saying. Okay.
I met him, I went out with him 4 times.
Right.
His name is Anthony Marsh.
Okay.
Linda's lizard brain took over before she even entered the interview room, striking a direct contrast with her sister Mary Beth, who was forthright from the beginning. Linda was in self-preservation mode, so she started lying as soon as her rights were read. She pretended she had no idea what they were talking about or why she was even there.
Now, you seem a little nervous now. A little
Well,
bit.
somebody referred to your rights, yes.
I understand.
Understandable. Okay.
Okay.
Well, we'll explain this.
I'll explain
No.
this. Okay.
At one point, Linda implied that she might know who squealed and that he wasn't a reliable source of information. You just can't trust that Anthony Marsh.
I don't believe the person that told you is a trustworthy person, and that.
All right.
Well, who is that person you're talking about? What are you talking about? You keep saying this person's not trustworthy. What person do you have in mind?
A certain person that.
Wait, no, what is that person's name?
Anthony Marsh.
Then why is he not trustworthy?
Well, you can look up his criminal background. You see that he's been in a lot of trouble.
They finally have heard enough of her shit and informed Linda that her confessions to Anthony had been recorded.
Okay, the conversation that you had with Mr. Marsh,
Yes.
we were listening to that conversation. Okay?
Okay.
So we can cut to the chase that there was no joking about this. I have crystal clear clarity, so you can read between the lines, okay? I actually had the same clarity with your sister
You've talked to her?
about an hour ago. So I'm going to tell you one more time. You're not going to come out on the end of this in a very good fashion because you're telling the truth about what happened. We try to give you ample opportunity to tell what happened, but now you know that I know what happened.
I wanted to know who told it.
She took exception because the detectives across from her told her to cut the crap. She eventually did.
So talk to us a little bit now.
Okay.
Tell me
My
the truth.
sister and I were lying in bed, and my father had dementia. He was calling both me and my sister by my mother's name. I knew he was dying because he had this mass in his lung, cancer. And she said to me, she held my hand and she said, I can't remember the exact words, but we can't let Dad suffer like this. My sister and I both said, well, we've started euthanizing him. He
Understand?
We have to finish it now.
Okay, and what'd you do?
So I just got a hand washcloth, and she held his nose,
Mm-hmm. And what'd you do?
and I put the washcloth in his mouth.
When confronted with the reality of her deed, Linda didn't seem sure about the legality of killing her dad. She seems stuck on whether it is an unlawful or totally legal murder.
I mean, do you think that's lawful for someone to do?
Take the morality out of
As
it.
Anthony told me, no, it was not lawful.
Let me ask you this. You don't know independently of Anthony telling you that whether that was right. Forget was it morally right or anything. I'm just saying lawfully, you had to know that was not lawful. It was legal to do that.
No, I guess it is not legal to do that.
Right.
She confirms that Lauren was asleep when they killed Mr. T, but the detective didn't seem to pity the fool before him. He sounded even happier when he said, "You are going to jail today," and whipped out the cuffs.
Okay. You want to undo this or do it?
Oh, yeah, do that.
Just stick your hands out, that's all. Let me see. Are they gonna stay in there? You have a seat. Just gonna keep your purse. You have no weapons or anything. I know you have a gun, but you don't have it in here.
No, it's in my car.
Then Mary Beth was brought in to hang out with Linda. She was also in handcuffs. They spoke in low murmurs, so one must rely on closed captions to pick out any discernible words.
What to say? Can't say anything.
You didn't say anything to them?
Yes, I had to tell them.
And so did I. Because you told so much.
I know. Because I thought I could trust him.
I've never recorded in here. And
I already asked.
I already told him who it was. He came to my house.
Who did?
Anthony.
When?
Thursday.
He told you he was going to do this?
He told me. And then to speak to me. Scared the shit out of me in my driveway. And told me what you told him. Then he was starting to blackmail.
What do you mean?
Have sex with him or he'll turn me in. And I said, if you turn me in, I'm not having sex with you. I have nothing to say.
I thought I could trust him.
Why?
I was having a hard time. I was having dreams.
Yeah, you
He wasn't speaking to me. I had no one to talk to.
You weren't speaking to me either. Now look at us, we're going to fucking jail.
It's through Linda's daughter, Lauren, we gain some semblance of truth and clarity to the story. Lauren is far from perfect, but she obviously cared about her grandfather and didn't want to see him rot in a care facility. When she was interviewed by investigators, she was still in shock from learning the night before that her mother and aunt had killed her grandfather.
So one of my old patients sends me a link, and I thought it was a joke. So then I turned the TV on, and there's my mom and my aunt.
Right.
And that's all I've been getting all day. I couldn't even go to work.
Lauren described the last few days of Mr. Tomaselli's life clearly, without going off on irrelevant tangents.
Probably about 8:30 we got back, and he would always read his prayers at 9. And he always liked to have a drink before he went to bed. But this night, when he was doing his prayers, he dropped the... After he had drank, my mom was sitting there, Linda was sitting there.
So who gave him the drink? Do you remember?
I don't know. I don't remember who gave him the drink. But it was an every night thing. Like, he would just have a drink to relax himself. I remember my mom or Linda giving him an anxiety pill because he was getting more anxious. And I was anxious. My mom gave me something, said, here, this will relax you, and just go take a shower and go lay down. It was about 11 o'clock.
That night, Lauren, Mary Beth, and Mr. Tomaselli took a drive to his favorite beach while Linda stayed home. Lauren had made this drive with her grandpa on every night she had stayed with him, but on this night, Mary Beth drove. Upon returning to the house, the night followed the same routine as far as Lauren could tell. She informed detectives that he took one Tomaselli tablet every night for sleep. He also had a Diet Coke with vodka every night while he would study his prayer cards. Lauren doesn't know who gave him his drink that night, but it wasn't her. She became concerned when he started shaking at around 9 p.m., and she expressed this concern to Auntie Dearest. Mary Beth gave her a pill and told her to get a shower and go to bed, reassuring her that she and Linda would watch over her grandfather. Lauren was extremely tired and anxious, so she didn't think anything was odd when her mother offered her the pill in classic horror film fashion. She fell asleep in the guest room with the TV on and the door closed.
And then about 4 or 5, I would say, I heard my mom screaming because my mom had to go to work the next morning. And I hear her screaming, and I come out in the living room, and Linda's on top of him. She's calling the old doctor she used to work for, Dr. Mazer, and she was saying, I think my dad passed away. I'm trying to do CPR. She was on top of his chest. And I told him the address, and I told him that I think my grandpa just had a heart attack. They made it, she said he must have died in his sleep. Dr. Mazer said, lift his back over, and his back was purple. So he said, he's already gone, Linda. That's what Dr. Mazer said on the phone.
Up until the time of this investigation, Lauren had believed that Papa had died from a heart attack or a broken heart. Lauren also provided a clear picture of her granddad's capabilities just before his death. She was there to help keep house, drive him around at night, make sure he took his pills and went to his medical appointments, and to keep him company. Mr. Tomaselli was beginning to show signs of confusion, but he still had the wherewithal to clean himself, cook his own food, do his own grocery shopping, and pay his own bills. He still had a driver's license, but cataracts prevented him from driving at night.
They wanted him to go to an assisted living.
Right.
They had me go look at a place with him
Nearby.
Yeah. It was on McMullen Booth. They wanted him to go there because they just felt like it was too much for me to take care of him full time if I wanted a job. But I had no problem because he did not want to go. He owned his condo. He owned a car. There was no reason for him to go, in my mind.
Right.
And I told
So he was
them,
resistant to this.
he adamantly said, I'm not going.
Lauren assured detectives he had not been in the kind of condition that would warrant his going to the group home right away. She was set to take him to his appointments the next day. She was horrified and distraught, haunted by the knowledge that her mother had given her a sleeping pill to keep her out of the way that night. Lauren had been in jail for selling Vicodin and Xanax, but she had been clean for years prior to caring for Mr. Tomaselli. She appeared lucid and alert throughout both of her interviews, but that wasn't always the case. She had been out of prison for a year prior to living with her grandfather. Lauren didn't understand why her mother and aunt were pushing him so hard to move, because she had been willing to leave her old life behind. Having been in a toxic relationship at the time, it was actually a positive move for her as well as for her grandpa. She even states that Papa had been happy with the arrangement, and he had claimed that he didn't want to live with a bunch of old people. Lauren also verified that her grandfather was not losing his faculties as described by her mother and aunt. Before her retirement, Linda was training her niece Lauren to take over her job at Dr. Mazur's clinic. Lauren worked for him part-time for about a year, and all was well at first. Then he noticed things like missing money and procedural errors. He revealed that he had noticed missing money while Linda was working for him, but in amounts that could have been errors. Lauren was obviously stealing from him, so he fired her. As for Linda, she had been a reliable and honest employee for the first 15 years that she worked for him. He started noticing random discrepancies in the books after she and her husband Ted divorced. When she was finally found out, Linda peaced out, capping a tumultuous decades-long career of questionable medical practices. Back to Lauren's interview. Her final words were chilling. She couldn't stop thinking about the pill her mother gave her when she became concerned about her grandpa's sudden trembling that night. She had wanted to help him, so they drugged her.
Like, I have nobody now. It's like, to think, I know he was sick, and I'm gonna be honest, I've disliked a lot of people, but not enough to do that.
That's understandable.
It's like he died all over again. Do you know what I mean? It's
Absolutely.
Just all over again.
Okay.
And to know that my mom would do that to me just is more sickening when I saw the news. That was your purpose, not to help me sleep, but so I wouldn't hear what you were doing.
Essentially, that's what happened, so.
Okay. Well.
Some uncomfortable truths came out as detectives began interviewing the sisters, the granddaughter, and people close to the suspects. Linda was a medical technician and had never worked with palliative care patients as she had claimed to Anthony. She had grossly misrepresented her father's condition and the size of his lung mass as well. On top of that, neither sister was even caring for the man at the time of his death. Shirley had been Mr. Tomaselli's long-term partner, and she had cared for his needs until her sudden death just 10 days prior to the murder. Lauren Johnson, who is Mary Beth's daughter, became her grandfather's live-in caretaker after Shirley's death. Through Lauren, we learned that Mr. Tomaselli wasn't in the dire condition that Linda had described. He was alert and able to wash and dress himself and prepare food as well as his nightly mixed drinks. He only needed a helper to make sure the house stayed clean, to ensure he took his medications, and to help him get to his appointments. He was not in the grips of profound dementia. The sisters were never inconvenienced by Mr. Tomaselli's choice to stay in his house. On the night of the murder, Linda and Mary Beth had come to stay at their father's house for the weekend. Mary Beth gave her daughter a sleeping pill that night under the pretense of concern for her daughter. Then the two killers went about their ruthless plan. Lauren was awakened by her mother's feigned hysterics the next morning and went down to a horrific scene. There are no heroes in this story, at least not in the traditional sense. Anthony has given interviews to People magazine about his role in the arrest of the sisters, and he seemed intensely eager to be part of the investigation. One can argue that he did the right thing, but was he really doing this for the greater good? Allegedly, Anthony had tried to blackmail one or both sisters before going to the police with his damning digital evidence. As he had implied to Linda during the sting operation, he is a dangerous guy. According to Mary Beth, her older daughter Jennifer found out that Marsh had a rap sheet for domestic violence, blackmail, and assault. He also seemed to play the sisters against each other in the recorded conversations. In the end, he was on the side of justice, regardless of his motives. Lauren seemed to be the light in the darkness until Dr. Mazer gave up the goods on her. It seemed like she really cared about her grandfather, and one could hear the distress and grief in her voice during her interview. It's feasible that she would have remained on track as a law-abiding citizen had she been able to continue caring for her grandpa. But her later actions overshadowed that possibility. Not only did she steal from the doctor as well, but she sent thugs to trash his house and car. It had a profound effect on Dr. Mazer's life. Sometimes a good apple is hard to find in an orchard so rife with decay. Poetically, the sisters were arrested on March 5th of 2019, on the 4-year anniversary of Anthony Tomaselli's murder. After securing plea deals, Linda and Mary Beth were convicted of murder in March and April of 2021, respectively. Linda Roberts was sentenced to 20 years for murder, while Mary Beth Tomaselli was given a 15-year sentence. Mary Beth received the reduced term for testifying against her sister. That's where we'll leave it until next time. In the interim, please give us your take on the Tomasellis and tell us your deepest, darkest secrets. If you don't feel like spilling your guts, just come by and say hello at our next live premiere event and let the darkness come alive.